In our very first story, persons with autism are generally regarded as dumb and useless and will normally be sidelined by society. But research indicates persons with autism are amongst some of the most gifted when it comes to pattern recognition, logical reasoning, as well as a greater attention to detail. With UN figures suggesting 80% of adults with autism are unemployed, it means a huge chunk of persons who could have supported Ghana's development are denied the opportunity to do so. Joy News' Hannah Odami. In the following report, Harvard says there are a few examples when it comes to gainfully employed autistic people.
People with autism have said that the world to them is a mass of people, places and events which they struggle to make sense of and which can cause them considerable anxiety. To them, the definition given to this invisible disability, a lifelong developmental condition that affects the way they relate to their environment and their interaction with other people, perfectly applies to their way of life. This lifelong developmental disability, which also affects how a person communicates, has no cause. Dr. Ebenezer Baidu is a consultant pediatrician at the Child Health Department at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. He tells me no week passes without a positive diagnosis of a child with autism.
We have an important milestone which we call proto-imperative pointing, which means a child around 1 year starts to point to things of interest. So the child wants milk or juice in front of him, so they point to it because they want it, and the mother gets it. Then around 18 months another development occurs, which is what we call proto-declarative pointing, and in that the child points to something of joint interest now. By that I mean the child points to something of interest to the child, like he's seen a cat go by, but wants mother also to see the cat. So that is an important milestone.
This year, the world is focusing on employment, the autism advantage, as a theme for the day. 32-year-old Norte Queno was born with autism, but he's gone on to learn some motor and sensory skills to help him stay employed. For 3 hours each working day, he folds, binds and packs magazines at this printing press. His employer, Ama Michael Niyama, says he never saw Norte's disability as an issue.
Norte is very good to work with. He understands what he has to do at the right time, at the right place. That's folding. He stitches, as you can see, using the hand staple machine, and then a lot of the work that.
For people to accept that autism exists, they need to appreciate that persons with autism need to be accorded some dignity. For Dr. Baidu, this can be achieved with the introduction of disability as a course in schools.
There's an interesting development again outside where they teach children in primary schools a lot about disability, and I think it's a very good idea. I mean, God help us all, we all laughed at children when we were young. Maybe somebody has a very big head and it's like you just laugh. But do you know why this boy you're laughing at or girl has a big head? Probably has a problem, a real medical problem. So when we don't understand things, we laugh. If you understand, you are very, very supportive. It's just a change in the curriculum. I mean, we can include in our curriculum throughout the country talking about broad baseline disabilities. You know, we know the common ones already. The research is there. We know the areas: vision, hearing, speech and language, all these things. So the common things that our children are living with in Ghana. Why can't we teach everybody to understand the very basics? There are excellent books, for instance, in autism, written by, let's say, a Canadian speech therapist. I found it very useful understanding the condition myself.
Today, Ghana joins the world to celebrate World Autism Day on the global theme, Employment, the Autism Advantage. To start with, persons with autism can be absorbed into the labor force so they can contribute to national development. Focusing on that can help improve their quality of life. But ultimately, it will be good if autism could be added to the next standard treatment guidelines in the health sector. That's Dr. Bedu's ray of hope for possible government support.
If you blow away the myths and the mysteries around some of these conditions, that's the first thing. That employing somebody with this kind of problem is probably even more enlightening. It means you understand, you've gone beyond normal thinking to say that I understand this condition, you can work in this capacity. There are a lot of things that they can do. Like I said, a lot of them are highly focused, or some can be very highly focused. They enjoy repetitive things. So what is wrong giving them something to pack, which people do in a, let's say, a factory, and you need to pack? Why can't you give a quota? In Germany and other places, they do give quotas, and it's working beautifully.
For Journal News.
And as we mark the day today, some children and celebrities joined a march with a pledge to support autistic people.
I know that autism, we are all one people, but it's just a little change that is changing, like those who can talk and those who can have the ability to do most things. But autism is not a disability, but it's an ability.
So what was your motivation for joining them?
To empower them, to know that they are not alone in this world and they can do everything just like we can do.
How about you? What's your name? Let me see your placard. Lift it up. When you see children with autism, how do you feel?
I feel good because they are like us, but how they behave. Like if you ask them, how are you? They can say I'm fine, but they'll say it in another way.
Like how?
I'm fine.
I joined this march because I want to inform all parents that if they have such children like this, they shouldn't feel shy of it. Because some parents, they ignore their children, and it can lead to stigmatization. So I just inform them to embrace their children and not neglect them.
So I have this placard, I deserve acceptance and respect as I am, World Autism Awareness Day. Why have you joined this campaign?
To help them know what they are and to help them unite with other people around them.
How are you going to do that?
By having fun with them, and if you are holding something they want, so then you can give it to them, then you'll be free with them.
A lot of the time people think that people with autism are sick. It's a disease. It's a little disadvantage that it didn't come out like every normal person. But I believe it's about time that we actually paid attention to some of the major issues that are in Ghana, in Africa in general. And so, I mean, it's obvious, it's always cholera or malaria or something that we're fighting for. These are some of the kind of diseases that we neglect. I believe that they can be well nurtured and trained, you know, and that is if only a lot of us are able to come together to raise facilities and other things that can actually help them to be who they are. We have intelligent children out there, and it's a major cause in Ghana that we are all neglecting, that we need to pay attention to.
And what step are you taking yourself in this regard?
Well, great. First of all, I'm a childcare and education worker. So I've worked with a lot of these children before. So I was actually just speaking to the woman, and I told her, you know what, I would like to come here every other week if we have to help the children to study, help them to go on trips, whatever that I have to do to help today, I'm going to actually do it.
I'm actually doing the soundtrack for all the autism stuff. I did 2 sounds for autism this year, and I think I have a lot of them in the pipeline. What I want to do is use music to create awareness for autism, because basically just talking and everything wouldn't bring nobody close to, but visuals and audio is the best way to get people to actually understand what you're conveying.
So give us a line now of the campaign song.
They're not different because we all are one.
Autism is something very touchy for me, because looking at my brother who is in society and people are insulting him, saying bad things about him. I personally have gone to fight for him before, but you know, I shouldn't say that it's good to go fight for them. But one thing I'm saying is, if you have a brother with autism or a friend or a sister or anybody with autism in your family, it's very hard to see them go through what they go through. So for me, this is the way I can support the work.
Now, 3 of the 7 suspects in the Denu cell breaking in the Volta region have been speaking about how they managed to pull it off. And from the accounts they're giving, there appears there was no officer at the station where the incident took place. Volta region correspondent Ivy Setoji spoke earlier about the escape plan and execution.
to them, they were just trying to tell the public and the police how they were able to break jail that very night. The guy called Boyo, that's Koku Azasu, said 2 Nigerians came from outside, that's from town, to help them get out from jail. But as to whether they broke it or they used key to unlock the jail, he cannot tell. But all he knew was they were out of jail together with the other 2 Nigerians that were inside or in the cell with them. So that was what he was trying to explain to the police at that moment. Well, the police said they are trying to do more investigation to get back to rearrest those people who also help in making sure that getting these criminals, alleged criminals, out of jail on that very day. So right now, the police and their counterparts in Togo are collaborating to bring these people back to cell. And also, the police were surprised at what the prisoner or the jailbreaker, one of them, that's Boyo, said about the two Nigerians coming in with a car parked outside so that they can come in. And that is news to the police today. So they said they are doing everything possible to bring these people to.
Now, that was Ivy Setoji speaking on Top Story earlier. Security analyst Dr. Kwesi Ening is questioning how the criminals escaped and, most importantly, how they had access to weapons. According to him, these are critical questions that need answers. He argues the competence of the officers at Denu is glaring and heads must roll. He spoke to my colleague Jifa Bampo.
How did the prisoners escape? How did they get access to 2 AK-47s? How did they get access to ammunition? And why has it taken so long to track them down? What does the law of Ghana say with respect to armories and the keeping of guns and ammunition? The case is about the incompetence of the officers who were on duty that night, their unwillingness and incapability to ensure that the armories were kept in a professional manner. So what they are doing is a deliberate manner to divert public attention from the issues at stake.
Isn't there the need for further investigations? Because there are conflicting claims about how the suspects broke jail. There's one claim that some of the officers were drunk. There's another claim that a woman came and diverted their attention. And the suspects themselves say that they contracted 2 Nigerians to help them come and break jail. And at that time, there was no one there.
Yes, but whatever it is, you see, the public deserves the reassurance, that the police are up to the task.
The police have found incriminating documents at the residence of the lady at the center of the U.S. visa racketeering scandal, Cindy Na Adole Brown. A search of the Mataheko residence of the suspect revealed multiple fake U.S. visa application forms, 2 passports suspected to be for the victims, and some refusal letters.
The CID officer in charge of the case, Raymond Abonu, would not confirm the exact nature of the documents retrieved from the residence, except to say the police found evidence relating to the case and will use it against the suspect. Adole Brown is accused of defrauding 225 victims when she promised to give them U.S. visas to travel to the U.S. She had collected monies from the victims with a promise to give them the visas, but her luck ran out and she was arrested thanks to the vigilance of an investigator. Cindy Na Adole Brown was granted a 30,000 Ghana cedi bail with 4 sureties following her arrest, but she has failed to meet the bail conditions and therefore remains in custody. MyJoyOnline.com sources say lawyers for the suspects are seeking a review of the bail conditions but are yet to make any headway. Some of the victims are crying for the return of the passport pictures they submitted to Na Adole Brown. They say they do not feel safe when their faces and identities are still in the possession of the self-styled evangelist.
We're taking a break. We have more stories coming up thereafter. Don't go away. A 21-year-old woman's dream of securing a better future in Saudi Arabia has turned into a living nightmare. She became pregnant after being raped by 3 men in the oil-rich Arab kingdom. Now, instead of helping her deal with the trauma, the household she was working for as a maidservant dumped her in the streets. Amina has been recounting her harrowing experience to Joy News' Mama V. Owusu Abuaje.
Why did you go to Saudi Arabia?
I went there to work. You know, Ghana, we don't have a work here. There's no work, so I went there to work. But when I was going there, the agent told me I'm going to do a supermarket. We are going to supervise at the supermarket. So when I got to the Saudi airport, I knew that I was going to do an house help. But because of I know that it's money that I went there, so I said, oh, if it's even is an house help, I'll do it. So the man who I was going to work with took me to his home. Then he introduced me to your wife that this is the new girl that you are coming to work with. So the woman, I was holding my packaging in my bag, my everything. The woman said, unless he baba me before, he baba me and let me go naked and do some incantation on me before I enter in a room. So he baba on my hair and just let me go naked. Then he put some water on me and before I go inside the room. Then he locked me. Then after he locked me, then the next day he opened me and he went to introduce me to the work that I'm coming to do. For 5-story building, I was the only person working in 5-story building. I'll clean even their ceilings, you clean their walls, you scrub all of it. The maltreatment, she doesn't even give me food. I was sleeping on the bare floor. Sometimes I was feeling very cold, so I even fall very sick due to the hard work and the maltreatment. So I saw I was running, so maybe I'll get a new job that they'll treat me well and give me food to eat. So a certain man came to me that, those who came here and run like this, we've been finding them another job, so come so that I'll introduce you to a new person then you work with. So I followed the man and he went and put me in a certain room and locked me. And then he said, we're going to call the new person that I'll go and work with. So I was there and he brought in 3 men, including him. And when they came, they said I should remove my clothes. And I said, why should I remove my clothes? And they say if I do not remove it, the one of them remove a knife that if I do not remove it, they will kill me. Then I said, no. So they forced me and they removed all my clothes and they all slept with me.
All the 3 guys slept with you?
Yes, ma'am. So after they slept with me and they just pushed me outside, I should go. If I come near them, they will kill me. So one of them was going, I was following him very small. Then all of a sudden, I've not seen him again. So I continued just roaming in the town.
Where? When you say the town, where?
Saudi Arabia. The town that went, the town is called Riyadh. Saudi. The area that I went is called Riyadh. So
did you see any Ghanaians there?
No, I don't see any Ghanaians. I saw some man, it seems he's come to put something in his store. And I told him that this has happened to me. But I not told him they've raped me. So when I told that man, he said, okay, right now he can't help. As far as I don't have a passport, he can't help me.
But is this man Ghanaian, a black man?
He's an Arab. So he said that he can't help me unless I have a passport there. Then he sent me to the police station.
Now, broadcaster turned gender activist Gifty Ante is asking government to abolish the issuance of the special visas used by Ghanaians to travel to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. According to her, the abolition of the Visa 20 appears to be the only way to end the maltreatment meted out to Ghanaians who travel to the Gulf states in search of greener pastures.
We need to stop the Visa 20 that the embassy here issued, the Saudi Arabian embassy issues for these girls. You see, the problem is that the immigration officers, I've done programs with them on the same issue. They can't stop them from going because they go with genuine papers. The embassy here actually issues visas for these girls to go and serve as cleaners, drivers, house helps, nannies, and so on and so forth. So they have genuine papers. So it's not like they are being smuggled into that country. The best thing is that government must move in to make sure that that visa is stopped. Our girls should not go to the until we get to know that things are properly streamlined. Our embassies in those our high commission in those countries. Ghana, we don't have a high commission in Kuwait. We only have in Saudi Arabia. That they are in contact with these girls. That when they go through them. They will know where they are. They will be able to trace them. They will be able to get in touch with them. Until then, Nigeria has stopped it. Ghana can't stop it.
Now, Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Baba Jamal, has also been speaking about the issue.
Saying that Amina's story is only one of many such stories that we have been hearing, and some actually even reporting. But and this is something that has been happening, and a lot of people got deceived into this situation once they get to those places, and then they regret their actions. But the fact is that when it comes to our ministry, ours is to accredit such recruitment agencies, which we always make sure that we meticulously follow the procedure. But the problem actually is with those recruitment agencies that are not registered. Because most of the times when such issues come up, when you get the names of those people who are involved, you go through our records and you can't find any of such names in there. It means that one way or the other, they were gotten into that situation by those agencies, one-man companies, one-man travel agencies that recruit such innocent people to those lands to go and work. But
Mr. Jamal, since you say that you accredit, from time to time, isn't the ministry able to do monitoring so that those who are not on your list, you effectively shut them down before people can even get to them?
No. You see, if they are not on your list, it means that you have not accredited them. You don't even know them.
In other news, Acting Director of the Town and Country Planning Department, Kufiose, is asking government to make the department autonomous. He says upgrading the department into an authority will help them enforce their plans without interference. Kufiose also maintains the department's current staff deficiency is making it difficult for them to carry out the street naming project.
Even though we have offices in every single assembly, yet our staff strength professionally is about 3.6%, and our technical staff is about 7.6%. This is a major problem. Therefore, we do not have staff to be able to even carry out the simple thing of street naming and addressing. This is a key thing that the president has given us directive on, but we are unable to carry out because of our staff deficiency. Currently, we can only issue our policies. We are not allowed to handle any enforcement, but the authority will strengthen us to be able to deal with some of the issues that take place in the assemblies. You look at our layout. There is no plan. You cannot build without a plan. And if you look at our layouts that we have produced, it is well laid out, but the implementation on ground is something else. And that is a bigger challenge. And we think when we are strengthened as an authority, we should be able to carry these things through on the ground.
In a related development, landowners in Chiado around Airport South residential area in Accra are demanding government intervention in what's shaping up to be a land dispute with the military. The landowners say they have suffered intimidation and illegal demolition of properties by the military. The landowners at a news conference in Accra are calling on the military to pay the full value of the properties they admitted destroying.
Residents said not only has the military unlawfully occupied their land, but also intimidate them and illegally demolish their properties, and they want government to intervene.
These lands in question are not public lands, but private lands, and the military cannot lay claim to them. There has been no due process to acquire the lands, no payment of compensation to the private owners of the land in conformity with the Constitution and the relevant laws of this country. We call on the military to respect the laws of the country and refrain from acts of trespass, intimidation, and wanton destruction of property.
Member of Parliament for Ablekuma South, also a landowner, says they will not be cowed by the military to vacate the land.
We are not ceding 1 inch of our land to them. I have no idea why they think they can just bulldoze their way here, break people's walls down, and we will run scared. We're not running. We're standing and fighting. And if they say they are above the law, let them come and face us here.
The military says it needs the land under litigation to create and protect a buffer zone between the barracks and the civilians. This reason by the military is not sitting well with the Director of Operations of the Chiado Trust.
If you want to protect a buffer zone, who gave you that buffer zone? Who gave you the buffer zone? That means there is a landlord. That clearly shows that there is a landlord. And it's the landlord who gave you the buffer zone. And what we are saying is they have already encroached on our lands. So what are we talking about buffer zone? We went to the site with them, with Lieutenant Colonel Sabute. We created a buffer zone. We gave them 100 feet away from what they have already encroached. So if there is anything going on there and you feel you have to go and do a demolition, what do? You call your neighbors and go with them. But that is not the intention. They want more lands. So if you see the demolition they've done, they've gone beyond what they are expected to, where they are expected to be. That's what we are saying. You have to respect your landlords, and we are even going further to say that the land they are sitting on is not for the military.
The group has vowed to petition the President, Parliament and the Defense Ministry for redress.
The legal tussle to stop the commercialization of genetically modified foods in the country is set to get more complicated as the Convention People's Party considers joining the suit as co-plaintiffs. Civil society group Food Sovereignty Ghana has sued the Agric Ministry and the National Biosafety Committee seeking an injunction on GM food commercialization. On Thursday, the Human Rights Court admitted the Attorney General's Department and the recently set up National Biosafety Authority as new defendants. Joseph Upoku-Gakpo was in court and filed this report.
Hearing last month, the judge ordered rates be served on the Attorney General and the National Biosafety Authority for them to also file their responses. But the Attorney General's representative told the court the amended rate was served on them only 7 days ago, making it impossible for them to respond. The judge, S.L. Mensah, thus adjourned the case to May 4, by when they would have responded in writing to the writ for arguments to be heard. The case now involves 4 bodies as defendants and 1 plaintiff. Chairperson of the Convention People's Party, Samia Nkrumah, who was present in court, disclosed her party would soon join Food Sovereignty Ghana as plaintiff.
We are here to indicate our support for food sovereignty in the lawsuits they've taken up, and we hope to join them after our Central Committee gives the mandates. We hope the CPP hopes to join Food Sovereignty.
As a party, as you want to join them as a party, as a political party, as plaintiffs in the case?
Plaintiffs, absolutely.
To what end?
Because we've always supported this cause. We've always said that Ghana does not need genetically modified foods, that the politics and economics surrounding the imposition of GM foods is very oppressive and colonial.
The Attorney General's representative pointed out to the judge that after the last hearing, some media houses had reported inaccurately the court had banned GM foods and accused the lawyers of the plaintiff for misinforming the public. In response, the judge made it clear the court had not banned GM foods, but said once an injunction had been filed, it is automatic that the defendants do not do what the applicants are seeking to prevent them from doing. Chief Executive Officer of the National Biosafety Authority, Eric Okori, says this order only affects commercial production of GM foods which have not started. He says ongoing research would, however, continue.
He was making reference to commercialization, and the case originally against the committee was for commercialization. The committee is for research, not for commercialization. And what the judge said meant that we must maintain the status quo. Whatever anybody is doing, he must remain there. The research going on can go on because the case actually is for commercialization, and nobody is in for commercialization. The committee's mandate is not on commercialization, and the commercialization issue is for the authority, and they are not there yet. And so the issue of commercialization is something that is, the judge making reference to now. But the research can go on.
But lawyer for Food Sovereignty Ghana disagrees.
From what the judge said today, then what it means is that they cannot do anything that is related to genetic GM engineering. Because our prayer in the injunction is to stop the release and commercialization of GM cowpea, GM rice, and all other GM activities. And confined field trial is a GM activity. So if you have to go by our injunction application before the court, and what we are seeking before the court, which I can tell you that you can go to the court record and get the record and see what relief you have stated. GM activities includes confined field trials. So today, if Food Sovereignty Ghana want to take them on, we can go to those fields, and if we see that they are really having this confined field trials, we can come and cite them for contempt.
This is just a preliminary suit. The substantive case in which the group is seeking a total ban on GM foods would come on after the court rules on the injunction.
The West African Examinations Council says the 3 visually impaired students from that Didome Senior High School who were unable to write the integrated science paper due to the unavailability of Braille papers will be given a chance to do so in November. Head of the National Office of Y Ghana, the Reverend Sam Ni Mai Ulenu, has meanwhile downplayed suggestions the postponement of the exam for the affected students will affect their performance.
Well, we are looking at the November exam, which will be taking sometime around September, because this exam is international. So you can't just write, develop a test for them just from the top of your head. So they will write in November, and we are going to import their results into the May, June, and then give them one certificate. Well, so far as we know, it is only limited to Adidome Secondary School, and it doesn't involve 7 candidates as reported. It involves only 3. 3 are those that are writing the integrated science, and this is the first time ever that we are having visually impaired candidates opting to take the integrated science. They are not going to be disadvantaged, because the information we have is that the universities admit them without the science and the mathematics, because they are not able to take previously.
All right, we have business coming up next, but still to come in the bulletin, what makes Kwehu the place to be this Easter?
I like Easter very much. I swear my wife, I swear, wallahi. Kwehu. What?
Right, it's now time for business, and Etonam says, yeah, Etonam, it's a long Easter weekend ahead. Are you going to Kwehu?
No, I'm working throughout the holiday.
Oh, so you can't get to go to
Kwehu? Sadly.
Right, you take it away.
All right, time now for business. My name is Etonamse. Tallow Oil has dismissed allegations of defying government's directive for it to exempt technical workers in its layoff exercise triggered by the declining crude oil prices. The company has confirmed about 70 workers comprising both Ghanaian and expatriate staff are to go home from the middle of this month. Speaking to Joy Business after an engagement with the media, the general manager Charles Darko said Tallow ensured Ghanaians with specialized technical competencies were not affected.
The General Transport, Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union had alleged that it had credible information the company had unfairly laid off highly skilled Ghanaian technical staff on the FPSO Kwame Nkrumah in the exercise prompted by falling crude oil prices. Their claim also comes after government's caution to Tallow not to target such Ghanaian employees in furtherance of the country's local content drive. General Manager Charles Darko explained the company was mindful of the concerns.
We haven't defied the consultations we have with the minister. We haven't, gone contrary to the consultations we have with the Honourable Minister, and I can tell you that there has been no impact on the core skill sets for which we had discussions with the minister. Precisely, if one of the things that one of the requirements that we have to meet with respect to getting working permits for our expatriate staff is to show a development plan for future succession by Ghanaians. And as a company, we believe that it's the right thing to do to use local staff to run a local company. We want Talo Ghana run by Ghanaians. For those people who are being planned to succeed, specialized expertise, there's zero impact on them.
Talo Oil currently has about 350 workers, out of which 70% are Ghanaians and the 30% expatriates. The retrenchment of the 70 workers would therefore leave the company with less than 300 employees. But could more workers be laid off, especially if the crude oil prices continue to drop?
We're looking at other parts of our business to see whether there are opportunities to if you like, outsource certain parts of our business. We have made a decision on that. But because we are an operating asset, we will make that decision only when we are satisfied that others can do it better for us than we are doing ourselves.
Charles Darko adds that Talo Ghana is still strategizing on how to manage should there be further dips in the crude oil price.
Now, for a reaction, we've been joined on the telephone lines by the Deputy General Secretary of the General Transport, Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union, Frank Salah. Thanks for your time, Frank.
Yes, good evening to your listeners.
Now, I'm sure you heard the Managing Director of Talo Oil denying laying off core technical team as you're alleging. What is your initial comment?
Well, I hardly heard whatever he said, but in short, I believe he was trying to deny the fact that some technical Ghanaian staff were also laid off. That we disagree with him because he's aware that at least 3 of these technical staff who are in the production department on their FPSO were laid off, and we have their names available. So I'm sure he's aware. If he doubts this issue, cross-check those that they laid off. These were the very guys they sent to UK for training and brought them back at the expense of the state. And so if they are no more at work, and then we have some experts rather at work, we think it is not fair. The directive from the Minister of Energy should be adhered to.
Are you willing to engage Talo on this issue?
We have asked, or we have put in a request for the 2 ministers, i.e. the Minister of Petroleum and as well as the Minister of Employment, to call all stakeholders back on the table for us to look at this issue, because we believe it is not fair as we have the local content in place which we all have to enforce.
Many thanks, Frank Salah. Frank Salah is the Deputy General Secretary of the Ghana Transport, Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union. The management of Intercity SCC says it intends to settle its 15 million cedis debt to various banks by July this year. As part of the move, the Managing Director, Samuel Nwama-Donko, says the company is taking steps to partner private investors to develop capital projects with the ultimate aim of putting the company back on its feet. He spoke to Joy Business at the signing of an MOU with the latest partner, Apitech.
We started paying, every month we do pay some of the debt from our own meager resources. But the strategy is to engage ourselves in the capital projects. We have a company that's already been engaged who is prepared to pay off $500,000 of some of our debts. We are going to pay Royal also, which will own about 1 million Ghana cedi, very soon. Then, giving ourselves maybe the next 3-4 months, we should be able to clear off these things.
The new phase of Intercity STC is aimed at giving customers comfort and safety while on board.
Because our passengers who travel have access to Wi-Fi free of charge. They can even charge their iPad or their computers whilst they are browsing their computer or iPhone whilst they are traveling with us. They also have air hostess who are going to the hostess who are going to be at their service throughout the journey.
The partnership with Apitech, Mr. Nwama intimates, is to provide the company with trained cabin crew members between now and 2020. Intercity STC, apart from running all the domestic routes, now run Accra-Abidjan, Accra-Cotonou, Accra-Niger, and recently Accra-Lomé.
The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, is asking government to speed up the process of winning the Agency of Government Subventions. Executive Director of EPA, Daniel Amlalo, says this forms part of major fiscal reforms to ensure the EPA remains independent to carry out its mandate.
Ghana is documented to be one of the West African economies battling with illegal mining and sanitation. The Environmental Protection Agency says these are challenges that need pragmatic steps to fix. The EPA therefore wants government to win the Agency of Subvention so that they can be independent.
Among the areas that need urgent attention are the winning off of the agency from government subvention, as captured in the report of the Minister for Finance, which was read to Parliament. Under our Act, we are expected to work at the district levels as and when necessary. So we are looking at the evolution of the agency to the district level and to the zones. One problem that has faced the agency and the country for a long time is waste management. And we are working at this.
The Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Mahama Ayariga, however, says government is working on the calls by the EPA, but insists the agency must adopt new technologies in its work.
Insanitary conditions across our country. We're in a contest against very polluted, air that people breathe in. We are contest against deteriorating health conditions generated by bad environments. So our first duty is to protect the environment, and the first basic thing is to use less paper, less ink, less material that have direct consequences on the sustainability of the environment. And if the technology exists, the first place we want to see the technology being applied is the EPA.
Mahama Ayariga also calls for teamwork to move the EPA forward.
All right, so that's it for business. My name is Etonamse. Sports is next.
Let's talk about continental assignments for Hearts of Oak over the weekend. And Premier League giants Hearts of Oak, they would leave Accra tonight for Imbos, Senegal, ahead of their CAF Confederations Cup preliminary round second leg tie against Olympique d'Ingo. The former champions handed their Senegalese counterparts a 2-1 defeat a fortnight ago in Accra, and will be hoping for a favourable result away to secure qualification. Head coach Herbert Addo told Joy Sports at the team's final training session this afternoon he is confident of victory.
We are going to Senegal, and there's only one thing we have to do, and that is qualify. And all the players know that, and we've worked very hard this week for it. And I think the way we are going to play, if everything goes okay, we'll come out with victory. So I'm just praying that we go there, the weather, as we know, doesn't change. The field, as we know, will not change. We prepare footwear, everything. So that it's now up to the boys to go and bring the goods. As for supporters, it doesn't matter how well you play, they want the end result. And when your rivals are ahead of you, it's not good. So I think we are using that as a yardstick, and I think things will be very good when we come back from Senegal. Yes, they know themselves. The last time they were missing some goals. Instead of taking their time, they were just blasting. And as you saw today, the team are prepared. I gave them the first 15 minutes at least. We must win the match. And look what they did today. Against a team they know, because we are a complete team. So it gives me that confidence. And the players are also very determined. And they know the Senegalese. They are very tall. They are a bit aggressive. So all we have to do is maintain the ball, keep the ball away from them, and I think the qualification will come.
That will be in Senegal. Here in Kumasi, of course, and in Ghana, Santikos will come up against Ulma of Algeria. We'll be finding out what happens in that game. Now let's talk about beach soccer. And the national beach soccer team has intensified training ahead of their participation at the maiden Africa Beach Soccer Cup of Nations in Seychelles later this month. Boosted by the recent donation by Transport Minister, the coaches and players alike have stepped up their preparation at their camp based in Labadi. Ghana could be facing the likes of host nations Seychelles, Nigeria, Morocco, Ivory Coast, South Africa and reigning African champion Senegal when the draw for the AFCON is made on April 5 in Cairo, Egypt. GBSA President Yampo Fankra is hopeful their steady preparation will come in handy at the tournament.
Submitted our budget last week to the Honourable Sports Minister and his deputy, and they've also advised on what steps we need to take. You don't submit your budget and then go and sleep. So it's in a system and the process will run. So in the meantime, we need to feed our boys. They need to train. They need a whole lot of stuff. So that's what we're doing now. And then that also would push us to do well in Seychelles, qualify to the World Cup, which would be a tall order because Nigeria will be there, the African champion Senegal, Ivory Coast, Morocco. These are all beach soccer nations. They've been playing for many, many years ahead of Ghana. But that doesn't mean we won't go for it. We'll go for it and try to qualify to the World Cup in Portugal. The Black Sharks keep improving match after match. The improvement is steady, but you can see it. It's you can see the areas in which they're improving, and thankfully in Seychelles they've not peaked yet, so we're excited. The team is nowhere near its full potential, so we hope that in Seychelles they'll peak and get to the final. Get into the final guarantees a World Cup spot, so we'll fight every match to ensure that that happens.
Morocco have won the appeal against their bans from the 2017 and 2019 Africa Cup of Nations tournament. The Court of Arbitration for Sport has overturned the ruling made by the Confederation of African Football after Morocco did not host the 2015 finals. It has also reduced the fine imposed on Morocco's FA from $1 million US dollars to $50,000 US dollars. However, CAF's order for Morocco to pay 8 billion euros in damages may be examined by another jurisdiction. So that's exactly the situation, and never mind what happened to them, Morocco. They might be in the 2017 African Cup of Nations, which we'll find out later next week who will be hosting. Ghana is in the running alongside Algeria and Gabon. That'll be all for sports tonight. I'm George Adejania. Israelite will join us with some more. You have a good night.
Now to end the news, we're bringing you the top stories before we go. Denu jailbreak escapees are giving the police clues about how they broke free. A young Ghanaian woman's search for greener pastures lands her in more misery and an unwanted pregnancy. Convention People's Party asked to join suit against commercialization of genetically modified foods in Ghana. Persons with autism on World Autism Day demand to be given a chance to work and contribute to Ghana's development. That's it for the bulletin. My name is Israelite. Thank you very much for watching.
This is Joy News Prime.